My beloved child. There is a sentence that was spoken in silence before it was ever spoken aloud, and that sentence is still moving through the air around you even now. Before anyone heard it, before anyone reacted, before anyone understood why the room suddenly became quiet, your soulmate had already carried those words in the deepest part of their heart for longer than anyone imagined. And when they finally said it, even those closest to them could not hide their surprise. Do not skip this moment, because something huge is waiting for you. There are words people say casually, and then there are words that arrive carrying destiny with them. What your soulmate said about marriage did not sound ordinary. It did not sound planned. It did not sound like something prepared for approval. It came out like a truth they could no longer hold back, and the reason it shocked everyone was because no one expected that level of certainty from them. For a long time, they had been surrounded by questions. People kept asking when they would settle, when they would decide, when they would finally speak seriously about commitment. Again and again, they smiled, changed the subject, avoided giving answers that revealed too much. To everyone watching, it looked like hesitation. To everyone listening, it sounded like uncertainty. But hidden beneath that silence, something had already changed. Stay till the end, because the part nobody saw is what changes everything. There came a quiet conversation, one that did not begin dramatically. No one expected anything extraordinary from it. It started like any ordinary discussion, but then one question reached them directly: if the right person came into your life, would you really be ready for marriage? That was when the atmosphere shifted. Your soulmate paused longer than expected. Not because they had no answer, but because the answer had become too real to release carelessly. Their eyes lowered for a moment, as though protecting a secret that had already grown too powerful to hide. Then they spoke words that no one in that room forgot. They said, "When it is real, marriage does not feel frightening. It feels like peace arriving after a long season of waiting." The silence after that sentence was immediate. No one laughed. No one interrupted. Even those who usually spoke quickly had nothing ready to say, because those words did not sound borrowed. They sounded lived. They sounded as though someone had already touched a future they could feel but not yet explain. And what amazed everyone most was not only what they said, but how they said it, with calm certainty, as if their heart already recognized something their mind had only recently accepted. Do not scroll, because something even deeper is hidden behind those words. The truth is, that sentence did not appear suddenly. It had been forming quietly through moments nobody noticed. A passing memory. A name they did not say aloud. A feeling they could not explain when certain thoughts returned late at night. A strange calm whenever they imagined not just love, but permanence. For many around them, marriage had always sounded like responsibility, pressure, expectation. But for your soulmate, recently, one thought began returning stronger than before. What if marriage is not about losing freedom, but about finally meeting the one person who feels like home? That thought changed the way they answered questions. It changed how they listened when others spoke about love. It changed what they rejected and what they secretly hoped for. And the reason everyone was amazed is because those who knew them best believed they would never speak like that. They expected distance. They expected caution. Instead, they witnessed depth. Stay till the end, because there is more they have not said publicly. There was another sentence, quieter, spoken later, when fewer people were present. It was not meant to become important, yet it carried even greater weight. Someone close to them asked what kind of marriage they would ever accept, and this time the answer came faster. They said, "Only the kind where I do not have to pretend who I am." Again, silence. Because hidden inside that sentence was a confession. They were no longer dreaming about appearances, timing, or approval. They were thinking about truth. About a person before whom masks fall naturally. About someone whose presence removes effort instead of creating it. And this is why their words felt so powerful. They were not describing a fantasy. They were describing recognition. Something huge is waiting for you, because this is where the meaning becomes stronger. What nobody understood in that moment was that while speaking, your soulmate was not talking into emptiness. Somewhere inside, they were already comparing every false connection they had seen with one possibility they could not ignore, the possibility that real love would arrive differently, quietly, unmistakably, with a sense of certainty no one could manufacture. That certainty frightened them before. Now it does not. Now, even without saying your name, their heart has started building language around permanence. And when people heard that shift, amazement spread because they knew something had changed deeply. Do not skip, because the next part reveals why those words came now, and why the timing itself surprised everyone even more. Not everyone noticed the exact day your soulmate began speaking differently, because the change did not arrive loudly. It arrived in the small pauses between conversations, in the moments when they suddenly stopped dismissing the future and started listening to it. A single ordinary evening became unforgettable for those around them. The conversation had turned again toward marriage, but this time the tone was lighter, almost playful, as though nobody expected a serious answer. Someone smiled and asked whether they believed marriage could truly change a person. Your soulmate did not answer immediately. That pause felt longer than usual, and for reasons no one understood, everyone nearby waited. It was as though even silence had become important. Then they said, "The right person does not change you by force. They reveal the part of you that has been waiting to be seen." Do not skip, because that sentence was only the beginning. The moment those words were spoken, attention shifted completely. Even those who had been distracted turned fully toward them, because this was not how they normally spoke. Their voice carried calm, but underneath that calm was something deeper, something that sounded like realization. One person laughed softly and asked where such words had suddenly come from. Your soulmate gave no quick explanation. Instead, they looked away for a moment, as though protecting a thought too personal to release completely. That small reaction said more than any answer could have said. It revealed that these words were not random. They came from somewhere real, somewhere quietly growing. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. What amazed everyone was that they did not return to joking after that. Usually, such moments passed quickly. Usually, they changed the subject. But this time they remained in that truth. And then came the sentence nobody expected. They said, "Marriage only becomes beautiful when your heart stops asking whether you are safe, because somehow you already know." The room changed again. No one interrupted. Even those who had always believed they understood your soulmate suddenly realized there were feelings inside them no one had fully seen before. Those words sounded too exact, too deep, too carefully felt to be casual. And hidden behind that sentence was a secret nobody openly mentioned. Those words sounded like they belonged to someone who had already imagined one face beside them, even if they had never spoken that aloud. Do not scroll, because what came after surprised them even more. Later, when fewer voices remained, someone close to them asked quietly, "So if you ever marry, what would make you say yes without fear?" This time the answer came immediately. They said, "When peace arrives before explanation." That answer stayed with everyone. Because it did not sound like theory. It sounded like recognition. It sounded like someone who had started noticing a feeling stronger than doubt. And here is why that mattered so deeply: your soulmate had once been the person who needed reasons for everything. Logic first. Proof first. Time first. Yet suddenly they were describing peace as if it had become more convincing than certainty itself. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next truth was even harder for them to hide. The people listening began asking more questions, not because they wanted gossip, but because they sensed a rare opening. They sensed that behind these words was a door almost opening. Someone asked whether they believed one person could truly feel different from everyone else. Your soulmate lowered their voice and answered, "Yes, because some people enter your thoughts without effort, and after that, ordinary conversations no longer feel ordinary." That sentence created another silence. Because now everyone understood, they were no longer speaking generally. They were speaking from somewhere personal. And though no name was given, though no story was explained, it became impossible to ignore that someone, somewhere, had already touched their future in a way they could not deny. Stay till the end, because this next part matters more than everything before it. For the first time, those around them saw not hesitation, but quiet readiness. Not pressure, but depth. It was as if your soulmate had crossed an invisible line internally, where marriage no longer sounded distant, but meaningful. And then one final statement came, soft, almost spoken to themselves more than anyone else. They said, "If the heart feels calm enough, even forever stops sounding frightening." That sentence remained with everyone long after the conversation ended. Because forever had once been the very word they avoided most. Now it sounded possible. Now it sounded near. Do not skip, because in the next part, the hidden reason behind this sudden change begins to appear. And what triggered it was something nobody expected. There was a moment no one planned for, yet it became the moment everyone remembered, because sometimes the deepest truth escapes when the heart becomes tired of hiding. It happened during a simple conversation that did not seem important at first. Voices were normal, the mood was ordinary, and nothing suggested that something unforgettable was about to be said. But then the topic returned once more to marriage, and someone casually asked why your soulmate had suddenly become so thoughtful whenever commitment was mentioned. This time, instead of avoiding the question, they looked unusually calm. And then they spoke in a tone so steady that even those nearby felt immediately that something real was coming. They said, "Because not every future feels empty anymore. Do not skip, because that one sentence changed how everyone looked at them." The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was impossible to ignore. Until then, people believed your soulmate still viewed the future cautiously, as though every long promise required distance. But that sentence revealed something nobody expected. Somewhere inside, emptiness had already been replaced by possibility. And when possibility enters the heart, language changes before people even realize it. One person asked what they meant, hoping they would explain further. Your soulmate did not smile this time. Instead, they gave an answer that felt even deeper. They said, "Some thoughts arrive and stay longer than they should. Some feelings return even when you try to stay practical. After a while, you stop asking why." The silence after that answer became heavier than before. Because now everyone understood they were describing something ongoing, something that had not appeared suddenly, but had quietly grown stronger over time. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. What shocked everyone most was that they no longer sounded uncertain about emotional things. This was the same person who once spoke carefully, who once treated serious feelings like something to keep guarded. Yet now every sentence carried unusual clarity. And then came another revelation, spoken so softly that everyone leaned closer. They said, "Marriage begins long before the ceremony. It begins the moment someone enters your heart with peace you did not expect." That sentence remained in the room long after it ended. Because nobody had ever heard them define marriage that way before. No mention of timing. No mention of conditions. No mention of approval. Only peace. And hidden inside that word was everything they had not fully explained. Do not scroll, because the next sentence revealed even more. Someone nearby asked whether peace alone could truly make someone ready for forever. This time, your soulmate answered without hesitation. They said, "When peace is real, forever stops sounding heavy." Again, silence. Because those words did not sound imagined. They sounded discovered. And for the first time, people began wondering whether someone had already changed the way your soulmate saw love without ever being publicly known. Something huge is waiting for you, because the truth behind this shift was still unfolding. Later that same day, when most people had moved on, one final question reached them quietly. So if that person stood in front of you today, would your answer already exist? For the first time, they smiled, but not the kind of smile given to avoid truth. It was a quiet smile, the kind that appears when the heart recognizes something it cannot deny. Then came the answer nobody forgot. They said, "Some answers become clear before life gives you the moment to speak them." That sentence amazed everyone because it sounded like certainty hidden inside patience. It sounded like someone already carrying a yes in silence. Stay till the end, because what happened after that became even harder to ignore. From that day forward, every conversation about marriage around them felt different. Not because they spoke constantly, but because even their silence had changed. They no longer reacted like someone distant from the idea. They reacted like someone protecting something meaningful before the right time arrives. And the reason this matters is because hearts do not change language without reason. Words do not deepen without experience. People do not suddenly describe forever with calm unless something inside them has already begun trusting what once felt impossible. Do not skip, because the next part reveals the hidden sign that made everyone believe your soulmate was speaking from a feeling far stronger than they admitted. What convinced everyone that something deeper was happening was not only what your soulmate said, it was the way their eyes changed whenever the subject became serious, as if certain thoughts had already become too meaningful to hide completely. There came another evening, quiet and ordinary on the outside, yet unforgettable for everyone present. No one expected another revelation. The conversation moved slowly, touching many topics, until once again someone mentioned marriage, not dramatically, not forcefully, just enough to invite an answer. This time your soulmate did not speak immediately. They looked ahead for a moment, as though listening to something inside themselves before allowing words to come out. Then they said, "The strangest thing is that when the right feeling arrives, even waiting starts to feel beautiful." Do not skip, because that sentence left everyone speechless. Nobody expected those words. Waiting had always been described as difficult, frustrating, uncertain. Yet here they were, speaking of waiting as if it had become meaningful, almost precious. And that is when people around them understood this was no longer ordinary reflection. These were words shaped by a heart that had begun seeing the future differently. One person immediately asked what kind of waiting could ever feel beautiful. Your soulmate answered in a voice so calm that the room grew still again. They said, "The kind where your heart knows something valuable should never be rushed." That answer stayed in everyone's mind. Because it sounded like someone who had already accepted that some promises arrive slowly, but arrive with weight. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Another question followed, one nobody expected them to answer honestly. What if that future takes longer than expected? For a brief second, they smiled softly, then gave a sentence that surprised everyone even more. They said, "If it is real, delay does not destroy it. It deepens it." The silence after that sentence felt different, heavier, stronger, more emotional. Because those words sounded like someone who had already learned patience through feeling, not theory. And for those listening, one truth became impossible to ignore: your soulmate was no longer imagining marriage as a distant event. They were describing it like a quiet promise already taking shape somewhere inside them. Do not scroll, because the next revelation changed everything again. A close voice nearby asked, almost carefully, "So what would make you finally believe marriage is truly meant for you?" This time, the answer came without hesitation. They said, "When I no longer feel the need to explain why one person feels different." That sentence stunned everyone. Because hidden inside those words was the clearest sign yet, someone already felt different. Someone had already entered their thoughts with unusual depth. Someone had already become impossible to describe through ordinary language. Something huge is waiting for you, because what came after made the room completely silent. For a moment nobody asked anything further, but your soulmate continued speaking, almost as if their own heart had decided not to stop halfway. They said, "Some people do not arrive loudly. They arrive quietly, and somehow your future becomes easier to imagine." That was the sentence no one forgot. Because now it sounded undeniable. This was not abstract anymore. This was personal. This was the voice of someone who had started carrying one presence inwardly, even if no name had yet been spoken aloud. Stay till the end, because the deepest part was still hidden. Then came one final question from someone sitting close, and if marriage happened tomorrow, what would matter most to you? Your soulmate looked down briefly, then answered with a softness that surprised everyone. They said, that the person beside me feels like peace even in silence. Nothing followed for several seconds. Because nobody wanted to break what that sentence created. It felt too honest. Too rare. Too complete. Do not skip, because the next part reveals why everyone later believed these words were spoken because a silent decision had already begun inside your soulmate's heart.